monsters, madness, and magic.
Alright, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here with a quick word before we dive in. Now, in this episode, I chat with author Jonathan Janz about the Twilight Zone, Stephen King adaptations, writing advice, his new book, Veil, and more. As always, thank you all for listening out there, and without further ado, here you go. Well, Jonathan, just to get started here, dude, take us back in time. You're a youngster. Would you consider yourself a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
I was yeah, that's a great question. I would say when I was 14, I started to read Stephen King. So at that point, but before that, probably more of a fort builder and a slight troublemaker. Nothing too nefarious, but I definitely like to be in the woods, and I definitely made forts in the woods. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Delphi, Indiana, and it's just this little town. It's actually, boy, this is sad. It's actually known for a terrible crime that happened there about 8 years ago now. But it's this sweet little town, and I grew up next to a graveyard in a forest, and it was like the perfect setting to get into horror. Yeah,
That'll do it.
yeah, it did. Totally did.
So, you mentioned you started reading horror at about 13, 14.
Yeah.
What are some books, authors that you lean towards?
I'm a King guy. I'm a Stephen King guy through and through. And I know that that's not at all unique or original, but he captured me when I was 14, and I wasn't even a reader of any kind at that age. And when I discovered, it's funny, the book I read was the Tommyknockers, and that's like his least favorite book, but but for me it was just total magic. So I'm still a King guy. I'm a constant reader through and through. But yeah, I love a lot of other, different writers now too. But King's the one through story from 14 till today.
I think, most people that are into horror have a little Stephen King in them. You have to. It's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. What about you? What do you dig?
Yeah, I have a Stephen King story too. When I was in junior high, I didn't intentionally steal the book, but I still have it on my shelf, so I guess I did steal it. But I got the paperback of Pet Sematary. The funny story with that is my wife also checked out that book from our junior high, and her name is in the little catalog card.
Oh man, that's amazing, and it's still there. That's
Yeah,
like total fate right there. I love it.
yeah, and I loved Robert Howard. I was big into Sword and Sorcery, Conan the
Yeah.
Barbarian, Michael Moorcock. Also, how are you familiar with Christopher Pike?
I've heard of Christopher Pike, and I've got a couple in my classroom library, but I've never read Christopher Pike.
Yeah, he's sort of I think he's like an unforgotten, or forgotten rather, stepping stone, because a lot of people in my generation started with Goosebumps and such, and then sort of build up from there.
Yeah.
But he's like the medium space between King and R.L. Stein. It's not really for kids. It's not the real heavy stuff. It's more like what you would get into in high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's great. That kind of makes me happy that I have some on my shelf at school because I teach eighth graders through seniors, and probably I need to be recommending that a lot for my I have a lot of eighth graders. You're right, because there is a space there, like a pretty big space
Yeah.
between Earl Stein and Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
So,
He
so that'll
feels
be a
it. He
good
feels
one.
it, man. Like, you should
Yeah.
check it out. It's good stuff. Even
I
I can binge it to this day, even being older. It's still like just
yeah.
great reading.
It's wild that that was your first King because that is so scary and dark and disturbing. He goes hard in that book, man.
It is one of his scariest books to me,
Yeah, agreed. Still to me too.
and I had to read it with every light in my room on, and I slept with every light in my room on after reading.
I tell you, that's either gonna like make you a King fan for life or shut you off completely. So I'm glad it did the former rather than the latter.
So just sticking with your childhood a bit, man. Like, what were some formative films and TV shows you grew up on?
Yeah, my mom was really big into the Twilight Zone when I was little, which I'm thankful for. And so we watched that a lot. We watched this one called In Search of, with Leonard
Leonard
Nimoy.
Nimoy, yeah.
Yeah, and it had like In Search of Bigfoot or In Search of Dracula or UFOs. And so I was always really intrigued by that, scared by it, but intrigued by it. And then another big, I think, piece of my formative years was she would often bring things from the library. And there was a time when the only thing that I would let her bring was the Star Wars score, the John Williams like double album. I listened to that so many times. But the other thing that she brought Edgar Allan Poe on album, like
Mm.
early audiobooks, and it was just mind blowing. So I was, at age 5, 6, 7, I was listening to The Black Cat, Telltale Heart, Pit and the Pendulum, and that really it scared me to death, but it also really captured my imagination. So that was a big part of it too.
What's your favorite Twilight Zone episode?
I think because I teach the story and I love the movie version too, it's Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
Yeah.
I love that. I was scared to death of that creature on the wing with William Shatner. And then the John Lithgow version came out. George Miller, the director of Mad Max Fury Road, he did that one, and I think that was like 83. And that would have been when I was like 9 years old. So like both of those hit me at really formative, like impressionable ages, and both scared me to death, and I still love them.
Yeah, my wife and I, when we eat dinner, we're either watching, something like Bob's Burgers or The Twilight Zone.
That is a fantastic duality.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember the Howling Man episode?
Oh yeah, I've taught that story by Charles Beaumont. Fantastic. And I used to show that episode when I would teach the story, love the episode. The transformation at the end is actually kind of like well done and creepy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And Next Stop Willoughby was also one of my favorites. I don't know if you remember that one.
Was that where they're at the that's okay, tell me where I don't want
It's
to
the
give it up.
guy on the train who doesn't know that he's dead,
Okay.
and he basically goes to like this sort of idyllic old school town where people are still driving in carriages and such. And
Ah,
it's just one of those otherworldly. It's not
yeah.
really a horror one.
Almost like a fantasy time travel kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really good one.
Because I dig that vibe. A book that has been I want to reread is Somewhere in Time by Richard Matheson. Because one of my students in my film class just is obsessed with the movie, and I find that movie it has a real cult following. And even though I love Christopher Reeve, he was my hero when I was a kid. I never watched that, and I need to watch the movie, and I need to reread the book.
Fits right in because Matheson wrote a lot. He might have written that Twilight Zone episode. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know he wrote a lot of
He did.
them.
I
Yeah,
think he did the 20,000 Nightmare 20,000 Feet,
yeah.
or the Willoughby
The
one.
Willoughby one. That sounds very Matheson like, so
It
it
does.
might have been him.
It might have, yeah. Because that guy, man, he had game. He is one of my favorite all time. I love that guy.
Yeah, we just watched The Legend of Hell House, the other night, starting our October, 31 for 31, and that's another Matheson good one.
I've never seen that movie. I love the book, but I've never seen the movie.
He wrote the screenplay, so it's up there.
That's good because people recommend it. Like they say it's good, right? Even though it's a little older, people dig it. So I mean that makes sense that he wrote the screenplay. What got you into horror, man? Like when you said Pet Cemetery, but what else? Like what TV
Oh,
and film?
yeah, I was into horror way before that. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of films I shouldn't. Well, unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I saw a lot of films I should not have seen because of my dad. Uh, Hellraiser when I was 5. Just yeah, yeah, exactly. I didn't have a chance.
You had no chance.
Yeah.
I was thinking of two aspects of that. I was thinking the nudity first of all, which I'm sure was intriguing to your 5-year-old because it was intriguing to me when I was little. The bloody version of the guy, right? And then the hooks. Oh my gosh, that's crazy that you saw that when you were 5.
Dude, but you know what scared me more than anything when I was a kid, film wise? Do you remember Jim Varney as Ernest?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Ernest
never
Scared
saw.
Stupid
I
scared me
didn't
to
see
death.
that.
I could watch Hellraiser, but if you put on Ernest Scared Stupid, I'm having nightmares all night.
Really?
Yeah, that's how the special effects in that movie are actually pretty crazy.
Wow.
Mhm.
I've never, okay, I need to give it a chance because I've never seen it just because I thought it would be kind of silly, but maybe it's
It
better than I.
is, it is, but if you watch it through the lens of like a 5-year-old or less, and you see the
Sure.
monster in it, you're like, plus he targets kids, so that's the whole thing. Yeah,
Ah,
so it hit home.
gotcha. All right.
But yeah, those are some that come to mind. The Tom Savini Night of the Living Dead, the 1990 version.
Yeah.
Still terrified of zombies to this day. Werewolves really got me too. Anything werewolves just unsettled me.
Yeah. There's some good 80s werewolves. The ones that hit me were American Werewolf in London, The Howling, and it's, I mean, I don't think it's quite as good as the other two, but Silver Bullet like
Yeah,
really made an impact on me when I was little. And there are some parts of it that are really cool.
yeah. In retrospect, as I watch it when I'm older, I can tell that it's not the same quality as the other ones. But I was a Corey Haim kid. Anything Corey
Yeah.
Feldman, Corey Haim, I was all about. So that's why that one stuck home with me.
Yeah, and that guy is was it Everett McGill, I think was the
Yeah,
preacher. Hit I don't want to, sorry about a spoiler, listeners, but like with the transformation, I remember that just terrified me when he says something like "It's not my fault," and then he starts to, and I was like wanting to bolt from the room, man. That scared me to death when I was a kid.
Everett McGill also great in The People Under the Stairs.
And I've never seen People Under the Stairs. I've got to see it. It's like a kind of a classic, and I've never watched it.
Yeah, it oh, I can't believe it. Twin Peaks, of course. Yeah, Twin Peaks.
Nice.
David Lynch fan.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I like Mulholland Drive a lot,
Hmm.
but I haven't seen a ton of Lynch. You know what Lynch I love was a straight the Straight Story, which is not Lynchian at all. But the guy on the tractor. But I remember loving that movie. It's like the only PG movie I think he made. But yeah, he's a great filmmaker.
Yeah. So a question I like to ask everyone is, you can take it fictional wise or real world wise, is what scared you when you were a kid?
Sure. Okay. Funny thing. Well, okay, so serious answer, nuclear war.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Scared me to death because there was a movie called The Day After. I never watched it, but I saw the commercials for it, and it like had me absolutely sure that the whole world was going to be incinerated in flames. So that was a serious one. One that sounds really funny in retrospect, but is really ridiculous. So I was listening. I used to watch Siskel and Ebert, the show called At the Movies, where they reviewed movies. I was a religious viewer of that show. And they would take like four or five movies every week and give it thumbs up or thumbs down. They were covering Cujo, but they said that it's about a rabid dog. And of course, I didn't know Cujo back then. That was before I read King. I thought they said rabbit dog. And so I, in my mind, conjured this creature that was like looked like a dog but bounced and hopped. And for like months, I imagined that creature hopping after me and snarling through my house. So the dog totally terrified me because of something I misheard.
I don't think I ever caught coot. I've seen it in as I've grown up, but thankfully I never saw it when I was young. We always had a lot of pets.
Yeah. What scared you when you were young?
Besides Ernest Scared Stupid, I had a very vivid imagination, so I definitely was. Even to this day, I can admit, I'm a little wary of the dark in general. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
the pile of clothes in the corner turns into a
Yeah.
person. That kind of thing still gets me. I've always been a fan of H.P. Lovecraft, so it's the unknown, the unnameable, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great at that. There's a story called Haunter of the Dark that's one of my very favorites that is like all about that, man. Yeah, so totally.
What records were spinning around the house when you were growing up?
Other than those audiobooks in Star Wars, we listened to a lot of Thriller, a lot of Michael Jackson Thriller, and I would try to dance like he could. I think my mom was into Culture Club, I believe was an album that she really, really dug, and so we listened to that a lot. And oh, Rick Springfield. I remember I would listen to like Human Touch and Jesse's Girl. Those were really big when I was little. Yeah, so those were just a few that I would kind of shake it to.
Did you ever pick up an instrument or anything?
I am horrible. So I can carry a tune passably well. I'm probably just being as objective as possible. Like vocally, I'm probably like a 6.5 on a 10. Like definitely not good enough to solo, but good enough to like sing in the car and not make people's ears bleed. I have zero aptitude for instruments. I tried to learn the guitar. I tried to learn piano. I was just a disaster at both of them. I took lessons, no ability there whatsoever.
Yeah, I understand. I started with the guitar and I had to demote myself to bass because I needed less strings.
Is that right?
Yeah. So how early on, when you're growing up, do you begin to experiment with writing? Are you writing short stories in school, entering contests or anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I don't think that there were very many opportunities where we wrote fiction, but whenever we did, I just vividly remember once was in like first grade. A teacher really liked what I did. It was about the Easter Bunny, and she like, hung it up and gave me all these stickers and all this stuff. So that was important to me. When I was in eighth grade, we were doing some form of like ballad poetry and I wrote kind of like this. I just really got going and went on and wrote this epic kind of horror thing, and the teacher was really encouraging. And when I was a senior in high school, I got in a car crash, and for a while, all I could do was either read or find some other way to, pass the time. And that's really when writing took a hold of me. And I'm thankful, like that was the best thing to come out of the crash because I wrote just, for hours a day. Because I was out of school for like a month. I had amnesia, some pretty severe injuries, but that's when I really, I think, found the love for it. And I also found kind of a safe haven in it because it took me out of the fact that I was missing my senior year in high school. And yeah, so I didn't get serious about writing really till I was about 26, but those are my early kind of positive experiences.
I write short stories myself, and
Yeah.
I'm a bit old school. I don't know if this is a problem for you, but I'm going to ask you. I'm trying to force myself to write more on PC because I just write by hand. It's just easier for me, and I feel like I don't get as distracted, looking at the screen and maybe open a
Sure.
tab, watch a YouTube video or something.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do? Do you always write digitally or?
I do. When I first started to get serious when I was 26, I had this idea for a novel. It eventually was published. It was my second published novel called House of Skin. But I worked on it. I rewrote it 8 times between the ages of 26 and 34, which I would not recommend to people, even though I was a little too precious about it. And I was like, this has to be the first one. So I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. But that one, I wrote out longhand. I had all these misconceptions about writing, one of which was that since it was a story that involved a graveyard, that I had to write it in a graveyard. So I went out with a lawn chair and like bug spray and some notebooks, and I just wrote it out longhand. And I didn't know how to write at that point, and my handwriting was atrocious. So it was a disaster all around. But I still enjoyed it, which is what I guess matters, right? So I was learning, even though I wasn't good yet. I was learning.
Yeah, and I pretty much force myself to do it now. But one thing that I do miss about just writing longhand is
Yeah,
when you transcribe it to the PC for the first time, it almost works as its own first draft editing
yeah.
process, which can be helpful. But like you, I had chicken scratch handwriting, so I just like skip over a paragraph I couldn't read and have to think about what I said.
Yeah, it couldn't have been that important anyway. We'll just go ahead and skip that. Yeah, no, I definitely do the digital, the typing now, just because yeah, probably because my handwriting is so atrocious. Yeah.
So typically speaking, just a general project, how many edits do you go through before you feel satisfied?
Way too many, man. Way too many. I go through my manuscripts probably about 19 times now. And I do it differently each time. Here's the thing that I've kind of embraced as I've gotten older, and I try to get my students to do it too. It's like anything that's weird about you, lean into.
Mm.
Like it's probably good if it's weird. The stuff that other people like look at you sideways for, that's probably part of your individuality and expression. So, like for me, like for nobody else would it make sense. For me, like I have a bird and bug and small critter edit. So I go through my manuscript just looking for scenes and making sure that there are those elements that would be there because those exist in our world. And obviously, I don't force spiders and stuff into every scene, but I think that it helps give my writing a little more dimensionality. It gives it just a little more flavor. And generally, they take place in Indiana, and there are a lot of critters in Indiana. And I do a lot of reading aloud. A lot of the waves of writing or of editing, rather, I'll read my stuff aloud. I'll do for certain like types of like word choice. I'll do like a dialogue edit. So I go through about 19 times, but I look for something different every time. And for some reason, that makes sense to me and works for me.
Now I know each project is different and it probably varies, but generally speaking, where does it begin for you? Is it a compelling title? Is it a character? Just a plot, a thread?
Yeah, it's always different, which I love.
Yeah.
Like, and this is one of my beliefs about life. Sorry to get too philosophical, but I've learned that one size never fits all,
Right.
really in anything, right? Like the moment somebody says this is the one way to do it, I tune out. I'm like, okay, you go do you. I'm not gonna take advice from you. If you think there's one way to parent, or if you think that there's one way to write, more power to you. But I could not disagree more. So yeah, okay. So I forgot the original question. Refresh it for me because I got off on a tangent.
Basically, generally speaking, where does it begin with a character? Does it begin
Yeah,
with a title
thank,
or what have
thank
you?
you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sometimes it begins with a title. Sometimes it begins with like an image. Veil, for example, began with this image. I was walking into Aldi grocery store with my daughter, and a guy was walking out toward his car. And I just imagine the guy just being yanked into the air, like 100 feet in the air and disappearing, and like
Mm.
screaming and flailing his arms. And it came out of nowhere. But that was the seed that became Veil. And of course, because I want to know, okay, how would that happen? What could do that to him, and why would it do that to him, and how would the character react? And that's kind of how I became like a version of me became the main character of that book because he was the witness to it. So sometimes it's that. I do love, you mentioned titles. I love titles, man.
Yeah,
I
I can't
love,
go without a title. That's my
is that
thing.
right?
Yeah.
That's like early for you in the
Yeah, I
process.
think of a title that I like, and then I sort of form everything around it.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome way to do it. Another guy who did that was Bradbury.
Mm.
Bradbury really looked at like for him it was nouns, but like it's a specific noun that had multiple meanings, but then often those nouns became his titles, like the lake or the skeleton or whatever, or the jar. But yeah, I dig titles too. And sometimes it's I mean they come from so many places. This is what I love about it. It's that every project is different. One came from a social media post that a high school classmate had posted that this book I wrote called The Nightmare Girl. She posted this really disturbing incident that she'd witnessed at a gas station. And from that story that she told on Facebook sprang this whole novel called The Nightmare Girl. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So they come from a lot of different places.
I think you'll appreciate this as a horror fan. Just the one I'm working on currently, and I might edit this out so I don't put too much information about it out there. But
Sure.
I in my free time, I like to go just walking through the old graveyards in town.
Yeah.
Because there's I live in a town called Edgefield, and it's been here since the 1700s. There's a lot of just old graveyards in the woods, and I pulled up on one near my house, and I just get out to walk, and there's a sign stamped on the gate that said "No perpetual care," and I was like, "Oh, that is a title."
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a title right there. So that's what I'm working on now. But I was like, just made my hair stand up on ends when I saw it, and I was like, oh, how can that has to be a story already?
Absolutely, dude. You said that to me, and it's like I felt an electrical like shock, like a galvanic shock. That no perpetual. That's amazing. That is amazing. That has to be a story, dude. You've
I
got to
haven't
write
found
that.
it, so I'm gonna edit this out so no one writes it before I finish.
And I won't steal it. I won't steal it. I'll
I
be
trust you.
envious of it, but I won't steal it.
So you mentioned it a couple times. I'm just curious. Do you teach creative writing?
I teach film, literature, creative writing, and English. Yeah, 8 through 12. Yep.
As a teacher, creative writing wise, if I'm a student of yours, what it was like the main lesson you want me to take from your class?
Yeah, so I tell them at the beginning of the semester the only two rules I have are don't bore the reader, and if it works, it's right,
Mm.
which goes along with what you and I just spoke about individuality. I do give them, of course, guidelines all semester long and suggest things and try to steer them, the whole show, not tell, that kind of thing. And then I try to like by the end of the semester, we get a little more nuanced. We get a little, so the first chapter in my creative writing story from our creative writing class for my eighth graders, we have three big stories that we write. I'm all about quality over quantity. So we do the first one, we learn the rudiments of the craft. The second one, we focus largely on suspense because I feel like even if you're not writing a suspense story or a horror story, those are really good lessons to inculcate in students for the rest of their writing. In the last one, that's when we get into more like deep characterization, theme. Even though theme sounds boring, I find that it really can strengthen, one's writing. And so yeah, that's kind of what we do. And I try to really make sure there's a big sign, a light board in my room that says find your voice. And I try to constantly guard against homogenization and to guard against this notion of doing what you think I want you to do.
Mm.
Don't write what you think I want, write what you're interested in. So I get stories, they get to choose the genre, the time period, the length. It has to be at least 1,500 words each story. Some of them write like 1,550, some of them write like 15,000. And I always tell them the story is the boss, write as much as you want. And give yourself permission to suck. That's one thing I tell them. I don't say suck, I say stink. But Mike Myers, the guy who did Shrek and Austin Powers, that was his advice, and it just like really unlocked me because when I realized I didn't have to write great stuff every time I sat down, it empowered me to just go, and that's how I want them to feel.
Yeah, just curious, has there been a student that submitted a horror story that knocked your socks off? Did you
Yeah.
question like, what am I doing?
I frequently find kids who are ahead of where I was
Yeah.
at that age. And I wasn't bad, like just objectively speaking. It's not like I was bad at that age, but I find students who are better, and it's really impressive. And like you said, some of them get into the macabre stuff, and that's so much fun because like I can look under the hood and kind of know what they're doing and how it works. And it's really fun to watch them kind of because some of them have never really written a story before. Like there aren't that many, you have like a journal entry in this class or something short in this class. We spend like 6 weeks on that first story. So like how often do you get to spend 6 weeks really just letting yourself go and getting into a fictional world? So man, it's a blast for me at least. Hopefully for them at least. Yeah.
There's I think every writer I've ever spoken with, and you just mentioned this a bit, give yourself permission to suck. I think early on everyone deals with that sort of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I have to say, or things like that. Is that something you had to deal with early on, and did you have to overcome it?
Oh my gosh. Yes, so much, dude. So much. I still get it sometimes. I still get it occasionally, but not nearly as much now. But yeah, it was powerful before. It was powerful before, and I think one of the reasons why it was so powerful, they say it takes 1 million words to find your voice. For me, it took 2 million.
Mm.
Honestly, it took me twice as long. And I think because there's an element in me that wants to be good at whatever I do. And so there's also that pleaser element. Like I never wanted my mom to be disappointed in me. I always wanted to do a good job. And so when I set out to learn about writing, I was too receptive of every writing advice I got. And I'm sure you've learned this. It's like you learn to discern really that honestly, out of 10 pieces of writing advice on the internet, probably 10 pieces are garbage. It's
Yeah.
like one out of every 50 is going to actually be applicable to me. And I didn't realize that. So I was just absorbing way too much was coming over the transom. And I thought I had to do all of it. And I was just too busy trying not to make a mistake instead of like actually just going and trusting myself. So once I finally did that, then I think the imposter syndrome started to diminish.
And Brandon Sanderson said something that I really like in terms of the writing advice. Some of it may be garbage, but even if it's good advice, it may not be good advice for you.
Oh, that's freaking brilliant. That is
Mm.
brilliant. There's a basketball coach. I actually hate Michigan State basketball because they beat Purdue. Purdue's my team. But anyway, Tom Izzo always said adapt rather than adopt. And man, I wish I would have heard that because that's another thing. Like he said, it might not be good advice for you. There are also pieces of advice that aren't good for you as they're stated, but there's some little granule you can take from that and adapt to your mode of doing things. And I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have, realized that I didn't have to, because I can never be like everything that I wrote for a long time was a terrible imitation of Stephen King. because I love King so much, and he was so and is still so important to me. But I'm not King, and I can never be King, and I should never aspire to be like him. I've got to be myself. He's always going to be in my DNA because he was such a part of my formative years and still is. But yeah, man, I gotta be myself, and I think once a writer realizes that, that's really freeing and liberating.
And I would say, you're not going to be the writer in 10 years that you are when you first start. So even Sanderson, the quote I just gave you, some of the advice that worked for him early on doesn't work anymore, and some of the advice that didn't work back then works now. It's a process.
I love that. I love that too, because it's like also the implied thing is that you're ever changing, you're ever evolving. And I love the fact that a writer with that much success doesn't view himself as a finished product, right? Like he's still evolving, still changing, and I respect that to death.
That's probably why he is so successful, because it
Yeah,
could be self-critical and change.
absolutely. Yeah, what a concept, right? I love that.
I want to ask you about when you finally get that first story published. Is it a big exhale for you? Like, finally some sort of vindication. I've been writing this stuff.
Yeah, dude, it felt so good. It felt so good. It was in an online, non-paying literary magazine. And it was the only story I ever had published under my own name. Craig Schaefer is my day-to-day name as a teacher, Mr. Schaefer, but then online and basically Jonathan Janz. Craig doesn't exist online. And most of the people who know me as Jonathan Janz. And but anyway, that first story was published under my own name. And even though I didn't get a penny, and probably nobody but me and my wife and my mom read it, my girlfriend at the time is now my wife, but it just meant the world, man. It meant so much to me because just somebody saying, I like your work enough to throw it up on our website was just, balm for my soul. Like I needed it so badly. And that's one thing too, like rejection, going through that kind of hardship helps you really appreciate and cling to the good stuff. It doesn't matter. Like whatever level I attain, whatever achievements, like I will always appreciate every little thing. Like, when somebody will email me liking a story, like that just means the world to me. So yeah, what about for you?
Yeah, same story, man. First story I ever published. Just looked at my wife. She was getting ready to take a shower, I think, and I just looked at her and said, "I think I got an idea for a story." And she said, "Well, go write it." I was like, "Okay." So I got in the recliner. I wrote it in about 2 days. Looked for online presses, and it was just one of those, non-paid exposure type
Yeah.
deals. And the guy emailed me back and was like, "Man, I love this. I'd love to include it in our next edition." I was just like, "Holy shit!" And just like I don't have any. I write because I like to write, and I don't have any intention or high aspiring goals of being the next Stephen King. I wouldn't, shake my head at it. But really, I just like doing it, and the way I look at it is, 40 years from now, if I'm gone, and my kid's like, oh, I wonder what Dad, what was he thinking? What was in his head? He could, it's like a little slice of, like a time capsule almost.
Yeah, it
That's how I
is.
look
It
at
is.
it.
It is. There's a quick moment in Fahrenheit 451 where the main character, or not the main character, this other character named Granger is talking about his grandfather and in how when his grandfather died, how much of a loss it was to the world. And he was just talking about like different things, but it basically like things that, his grandfather, things that he touched were different because he touched them.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been just carvings or something like that. But I thought that was such a special, true way to put it. Like you said, like you're putting something out into the world or even into onto your shelf or wherever it is, and others are going to be able to find that, and that's going to like connect them
Hmm.
with you. And I think that's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's really the main reason I really like it. It's not that not to, like I see, like you said earlier, not to get too philosophical, but I don't necessarily fear death, but I know that it happens. And, one day we're all going to die, and I'm just like, it's a little slice of immortality.
It
That's the way,
truly is.
yeah.
really is. No, and this is making, I don't want to get too heavy, but there's a line from Anne Frank. We read Diary of Anne Frank in my eighth grade class, and she's writing and she says, I want to go on living after even after I die. And then I just kind of pause and look up and my students are kind of nodding. They're like, "Yep, she did. Yep,
Yeah,
she
and
did."
it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, and that's a pretty amazing thing.
You know, you've been talking, how big of an influence King is on you. So I've been wanting to ask your short story. I think it's Lenora. Am I
Yeah,
correct there?
that's right.
So it's a Stephen King themed anthology. With him being such a big influence, was the pressure mounting for that one? Did you feel like this has to be perfect? Did you beat yourself up over it?
Yes, debilitating, debilitating self-doubt was absolutely smothering me for about the first 2 or 3 weeks after I was invited into the anthology. And what finally allowed me to, because I just forgot, like honestly, for about 3 weeks, I forgot how, because by that, I've written quite a few novels and quite a few short stories. I just kind of forgot like how I'd done it. And then when I finally remembered that, hey, you didn't write those being petrified. You didn't write those being terrified of making a mistake. You wrote those by just letting go and going. And once I finally realized that and got my idea, then I just went. And it was because my desire was to thank him. My desire was to show him how much I appreciated him. That desire was very counter to writing a good story because that was what was in my mind. And so that was kind of like prohibiting the magic from permeating me or for me from crossing over into that world of magic. So when I let that go and I realized the best way to honor him is to write a really, really good story. And so once I remembered that, then I went and then it's of all my short stories, it's my favorite short story that
Mm.
I've written.
What was the King story that you worked within for that one?
Yeah, The Stand,
Oh,
the,
okay.
the novel The Stand. Yeah, so it's called The End of the World as We Know It, and we were told to. And this, the funny thing was, this wasn't King's decree. This was from the editors, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. They told us to just not use the main canonical characters from The Stand, but obviously we're going to use this world that is ravaged by the super flu, and then just the stories that take place within that world. And so my story, the backdrop is basically the world is dying of the super flu. And my character, I forget who it was. It was a reader who said this to me. She said that my character, his name is Baker Ludlow, he's already had his apocalypse. All right, before the story begins, before the super flu. So now, as everybody else is kind of having their apocalypse, he just wants to kind of like remain separate from the world. But it's basically about him meeting this little animal. It's called a dick, this little baby antelope, and not wanting to take care of it, but the animal becomes part of his life against his will. So
Mm.
that's kind of the basis of the story. Yeah.
So earlier you kind of already gave us the inspiration for Veil, and then there's a nice big backdrop behind you. So for listeners out there, just give us a little bit of info about the story, without too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So invisible creatures are abducting people, and we cannot stop them. Humankind cannot stop them because we can't see them and we don't know when and where they'll attack. The main character has had people close to him abducted and is desperate to get them back, doesn't see a way to get them back until he comes upon this group of survivors who have they think figured it out. There is one man on Earth who can see the creatures because he had this terrible brain injury, and that allowed him to see through the veil and to see the creatures. So the characters, including my main character, are going to have this experimental brain surgery to replicate that injury to try to be able to see the creatures, fight them, and get their loved ones back.
Awesome. Well done.
Thank you.
You told us the inspiration for it and sort of how your inspiration generally comes. It could be a story or, I mean, a title, a character, or a moment. But for the framework of the story itself, are you a heavy outliner? Do you go with the flow? How does that
Very
work?
much, very much go with the flow.
Mm.
Yeah. And the only drawback to that, the positive, there are a lot of positives. I think the main positives are that my stories they grow organically. They're kind of unpredictable, I think, because I let the characters take the wheel, and I feel like the endings not. And this is not to say the opposite for people who plot. I'm not saying at all, but for me at least, that's a way to ensure that the ending is going to fit because the characters have found their way to the ending. The one drawback to that is that I write really long and I have to cut a lot, which is not efficient. So like King's his equation is final draft equals rough draft minus 10%. My equation is final draft equals rough draft minus like 30%. So
Mm.
I cut a lot of words, man. I cut a lot.
Has it always been that way for you? Did you ever experiment outlining, or is that just not an option for you?
Well, no, and that's I'm glad you asked because every story is different.
Yeah.
I have with a couple stories outlined, and it actually went pretty well. I did that with a novella called Exorcist Road, that's currently out of print, and then I did it with another one, and I forget which one it was, but in both cases it went well. So I can definitely see why people, and it was kind of reassuring actually to have that to fall back on because I already kind of had everything like the skeleton plot. I think I did that with a novella because I had a deadline. And so I knew I couldn't be inefficient. Like it had to be written over, I think, like a 3 week span, written and edited. So that was why I did it, but it worked really well. So I can definitely see why people do it. How do you do it?
I was gonna say I'm like you. I kind of have an idea of. I like the. I think it may have even been King, but I'm not sure. You know, it's kind of like driving down a misty road and you've got the headlights on. You can see just enough in front of you.
Headlight theory. That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly the metaphor I use. Exactly.
That's what I like. I know generally where I want to go, and I know where the ending is, but which way I'm going to take to get there just kind of up for grabs as I write.
Yeah, dude, that's exact same, man. Exact same.
And Aaron will know this because I just did an interview with the Normans for their VHS Halloween, and he said something I totally agree with, which I think clicked in my head, which is probably why I like going the more skeletal route with the outline. Is just the outline, like a very detailed, structured outline, feels like too much work for me. And the writing is fun. I just want to get to the fun part.
I could see that, man. I could see that. By the way, you said you just the VHS Halloween.
Yeah.
I've been hearing so much about that. Have you like? I mean, have you
Yeah,
seen?
it's really good. And specifically, the last segment that the Normans directed, I told them I wasn't just blowing smoke up their ass because I was talking to them, but it's
Yeah,
one of the best segments of the franchise.
that's saying something because that is a really, really good franchise. Like
Mm.
really good. I really dig those quite a bit. I haven't seen all of them yet. I think I've seen three, I think two or three of them. And I've loved each one. My daughter and I have a horror loving daughter who's a senior in high school, and we just love horror. So we're gonna watch that this month if we can.
Awesome. I was going to say, are you doing your Halloween watch list? Have you watched any this month?
I am gathering things. Well, the problem is she's got a friend. She's got a boyfriend, I guess, and he's a good kid. So they watch stuff more often than she and I watch stuff now, which is, I get it. It's totally cool. I'm not as cool.
You're going to have
But
to corrupt him.
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And well, she's doing that. He wasn't big into horror before, but now she's really getting him into it, which is great. And he also he's into superhero stuff, and he's getting her back into that. So
Mm.
kind of cool, like symbiosis going on there. But no, I really, I was telling her today, right before our podcast, I told her, I'm like, we've got to make our list. So I sent out a thing on social media asking for recommendations. But VHS Halloween is one, man, I've seen all over the place. And every time I see it, people say really awesome things about it.
Yeah, it is good. Last night we watched American Werewolf in London. It was my wife's first time watching it.
Oh,
Yeah. And she was like, "Is this a comedy?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." Because she was laughing so much. She was like, I just wasn't expecting it to be this funny. I'm like, "Yeah, a lot of people don't. It is like if you look it up, it says horror comedy."
what was her reaction to the transformation scene?
She was like, "This is pretty intense, especially for as old as the movie is, and but she hated the ending.
Ah,
And
gotcha.
she was looking for the love story ending, and she was like, she's gonna save him, right? And I'm just like, well,
You're like looking
I
away.
can't remember. I haven't seen it in so long. I just had to lie.
That's a safe answer right there.
Yeah.
That's a safe. Oh,
I think you mentioned you were a basketball coach. Do you just curious? Do you keep up with the pros, or are you just a college, high school guy?
yeah, no, I did. I coached varsity girls basketball for a decade, and I coached a lot of other stuff too. But yeah, no, I keep up with. So my main two are Purdue basketball, and I love college basketball, but also the Pacers to a degree. My grandpa on one side played for the Pacers.
Wow.
Um, he was the Indianapolis Olympians, and they became the Pacers. But he was
Okay.
the first guy drafted from Alabama University to the NBA. And so he played for them. And then my mom was the very first Pacer cheerleader. She was a Pacemate in their first crew, and she was like in front. The first time they put a spotlight on the cheerleaders, she was the first one spotlit. So I say she really was the first cheerleader, and she was on. I think they won an ABA championship one year when she was a cheerleader. So like the Pacers are kind of part of my whole heritage and stuff. So I always root for them. What about you? Are you into it?
Yeah. I'm a Mavericks fan, so it was a little bit up and
Yeah.
down for us last
Yeah.
year with the whole Luca trade and whatnot. But we got lucky
Yeah.
with flags, so it's a new era.
Yes, it is. He's a player, man. He's a
Yeah.
player. He does everything. And you had a championship with Dirk and stuff, so
Oh
you've
yeah,
had.
Dirk. I have a Dirk jersey in my closet right now. Dirk is near and dear to our hearts.
I bet. Can you shoot threes like he does?
That's the only thing I can do. I'm a spot up shooter, man. I'm not doing anything else.
Hey, if you're gonna have something in your arsenal, that's a good one to have, dude.
What would you say is the best writing advice that someone has given you, and who gave it to you?
Okay, so other than the, give yourself permission to suck, another really good one, and this is not sexy. Well, two that aren't sexy. King says read a lot and write a lot, and I agree. And then Joe R. Lansdale had the BIC rule, which is butt in chair, and I just think that's great. I think you plop yourself down and you just write, and I think what that does is, and by the way, I'm not one of these people because again, I would be the last person to impose my writing beliefs on somebody else. You hear people that say, "Oh, if you don't write every day, you're not a writer," and all this crap. And I'm like, what kind of life do you have where you can write for several hours? Like, I mean, that's great, more power to you. I don't have that kind of a life. Like, I've got other obligations.
Right.
So I'll go weeks without writing, and it hurts to do that. But I get busy. Like, I've got to grade papers. I've got a family, whatever. And I know you've got a lot going on too, so you know what I'm talking about. But I do think that when you do write, I think it's important to, when you can, clear away time, sit down and just get some words out, whether it's 100, 500, 1,000, 3,000. I think that that's just a really healthy way to make yourself grow and to coax your voice out, and so it eventually can find its full fruition.
Yeah, well said. And when I get in those, I can go weeks without writing too, or a month or two even. But you can do a lot of work in your head. That's what I've taught myself to do. Is
Man,
yeah, just think about the story. You're laying down and I tell it to yourself, and then by the time you sit down, it's already there, and you just have to adjust it when however you like. But you can do a lot of work just thinking about it.
so agree, and it's so weird that I only this year, and I heard it like three different places. You're like the fourth place I've heard it this year, and I'm like, that is the best advice ever because it's so true. And I realized what it did was it like made me feel less guilty because I'm always like living in the world of my stories. Like if I have an idle moment, if I'm in the car, especially if I'm driving, I'm in my story world. And that's writing, like thinking about your stories. That's a form of writing or a crucial part of the process. So, dude, that's a wonderful piece of advice.
Yeah, and it's almost necessary, for we're not all Stephen King. Like you said, you have papers to grade, you got kids, so it's a way for us to work around it without beating ourselves up too bad.
Yeah, and it also helps fill up those coffers. So when our fingers do touch the keyboards, they start to flow a lot faster, I think.
Yeah. So, near the end here, I like to ask everyone this question, and that is, have you ever had an experience that you would consider supernatural or paranormal?
I have had a couple, and honestly, with this stuff, I'm not sure how I feel. Like I'm open-minded. This is going to sound weird to some people, but I fully believe it happened. When I had this dog named Petey, and this dog, that name for Petey, it shows up a lot in my writing because I had that dog when I was a little kid, and I think I was 4 when I got him. When I was 5, I was walking home from kindergarten, and I heard a woman wailing, and I got near the house, and she had run over my dog, and she of course felt so horrible, like she was just crushed. And I saw him lying there with blood, and it was beyond devastating. It was like my life had ended. And he was really, I didn't have any siblings. It was just me and my mom. My She divorced my dad by that time, and he was my companion. So I went in the house, and I didn't leave the house. I didn't leave my room for 2 or 3 days, and she let me stay home from school. I was just destroyed. And then it was like the second or third day, I woke up, and I went out of we were in this tiny little house, but I walked out of my room, and there he was sitting on the couch. And man, I haven't told this story for a while, but I was 5, but I walked over there and I sat and I just held him. and and I remember my mom coming out, and she saw me, and she kind of gently led me back to my room. But like, I think it was just my way of knowing that he was not gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's powerful, man. I guess, just to follow up on that question is like, do you consider yourself religious, spiritual, etc.? Anything that you could point to like that?
I mean, I do. And here's the thing here. I'll say this. Like, I consider myself a spiritual person. Um, I will just to keep it general, I feel like the person whom I follow, I feel like a lot of people who profess to follow him don't. They
Hmm.
say they do, but then they don't. So I'll just keep it general because I know that's a long
Yeah,
road to go. But
yeah, I
yeah,
understand.
I'm definitely a spiritual person, but yeah, I wish other people would definitely, practice what they preach a lot more.
Well said. So, Jonathan, just to put a bow on this thing here, man. Anything in the pipeline? What's on the horizon for you? Anything you want to put out
Yeah.
there without
You
getting
know
in
what's
trouble?
Yeah, no, that I like that last you kind of protected me there. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I just got a text while we were, and I wouldn't have noticed except my phone buzzed while we're talking here from my agent. And I think it might be good news. And if it is good news, obviously I'm not going to get specific because I don't know. Maybe it's bad news, but it seemed like good news from his text. I think there might be news on a new book deal coming here very soon. And yeah, so hopefully, 2, maybe 3 books coming
Wow.
26 and 27. And hopefully I'll be able to be more specific than that. But yeah, man. So I've got, just to be more general, but also a little more detailed. So have you read Bag of Bones by Stephen King?
Yeah.
Okay, so the writer in there gets writer's block, and he's got four manuscripts that are like in a safe deposit box that he put in there in case he ever had writer's block, so he can pull out and get published later on, right? I've got that situation with like 6 manuscripts. I've got like 6 things that have not been shopped that I've just written, but that I'm really excited to have my agent shop, that I just love, and I've just been writing. So yeah, I've got several, man. I've got several that are going to be hopefully shopped soon, and then hopefully find publishers, and I'm super excited about.
Hell yeah, man. I'm rooting for you.
Appreciate it.
One quick thing before I let you go, because I meant to ask you this earlier. Best Stephen King film adaptation.
Okay, this is not gonna be unique, but let me give you two. I will say my favorite is Shawshank Redemption.
Mm.
It's in my top 5 movies of all time. I think it's a perfect movie and a perfect book. And so I just don't know how. It's I think it's a quintessential example of a book and movie both being perfect, and I just love them both. The other one I'm going to mention because I don't think enough people talk about is Doctor Sleep. I think that the Doctor Sleep director's cut by with Mike Flanagan. I mean, the theatrical cut is great, but I love the book and I love the movie, and the movie somehow manages to do honor to the novel, to to the Shining novel, and then to the Shining movie by Kubrick. And some Flanagan, you talk about unflinching. That adjective unflinching is made for that scene. Horrific.
Mike
So
Flanagan
bad.
is a boss. I mean, he really is just great at what he does.
He is, and man, he went there. He absolutely went there. That scene with poor baseball boy, man, it broke my heart on the page when King wrote it. It broke my heart in the movie. So sad, but so well done.
Yeah, those are good ones. I can't disagree.
What about you? Do you have? I know you got to go, but do you have
Yeah.
one?
All right. Well, see, my answers probably have more to do with nostalgia growing up more than accuracy or anything like that. But I have to go with Carrie, and Pet Cemetery is up there for me. So the first movie, definitely not the remake. Uh,
Yeah,
I'd probably go with Carrie and Pet Cemetery for my personal favorites.
yeah, those are great choices, man. I mean, De Palma, Sissy
Hmm.
Spacek, can't. I mean, even William Hurt, John Travolta. I mean, man, that's a movie.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, dude, I had a great time chatting with you. Thank you for giving me some of your time.
This has been amazing. Did I say William Hurt? I didn't mean to. Sorry for Carrie. I'm an idiot if I said that. Dude, it's amazing. I just didn't want to be, go back and regret something. William Cott, wasn't it? Was he the guy in Carrie? This
Off
is
the
the,
top of my head, let me pull it up real quick.
this is the
Let's
sloppiest
just,
ending of any interview ever because of me.
because
You're like,
when you said Hurt, I thought of John Hurt, and I was like, I don't think John Hurt was in Carrie.
nah, he was an alien. William Hurt's the guy in like Kiss the Spider Woman and Captain America
We're just gonna
Civil
settle
War.
this right now. I'm just gonna pull it
I
up.
think
Hold
it's
on.
William Cott, Kaat maybe. I think that's the guy, the good guy, the nice guy that actually wanted to take Carrie to the prom. I think
I almost got it. Let's see.
that's okay, and I'm so sorry
Yeah,
for
you're
that.
right. It is.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah, that's who it is. Yep, you're
I'm
right.
so glad that okay, then I'm glad I said something because that would have haunted me, and I would have felt like. So thank you for giving me that chance to amend myself. But man, you have been amazing, Justin. I've had an absolute blast on your show.
I appreciate you, man. Look forward to seeing what's next for you.
You as well. Thank you, my friend.
All right, folks, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Jonathan. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you back next time.